Are you going to be there?
Yeah.
I
You want to run with me? I have a 5 mile run today.
no. That's how original to have a 5 mile run the day before Thanksgiving.
It's easy pace.
I know. Why is this like? Oh, there we go. That's centered now. Um, John, you look so nice for us. You got the hair combed. You have the nice shirt on instead of the wife beater. Do you do that because we're talking about the women?
Oh, that's exactly the reason. Yes.
Got to
Yep.
be on your Sunday best.
Yep.
All right. Well,
I figured they'd be
it's
tuning in. I want to look presentable.
yeah. That you get away with more that way. I, on the other hand, didn't put a hat on and have the just most disheveled hair that you've probably ever seen from me. So open for criticism. Um, anyway, it's obviously it's Thanksgiving week. Last week, if you guys missed it, we did the top 200 men in the world. Come
I
on,
don't know
Audrey.
what I did to that girl, but
I don't know.
She just gets some ideas in her head, and then it's hard to get them out of her head. But anyway, yeah, did the top 200 men last week. Provided a little bit of context there. John joined us for that show, as he did last week. He has. I don't think you've seen the list yet, right?
no sir.
So completely blind. And I do know that John was, especially towards the top of the list, very excited for the women's rankings because there are quite a few women who didn't compete last year, and for one reason or another, we'll talk about many of those athletes. And it's kind of fun just to, he spends a lot of time getting to or researching athletes, watching different competitions, and trying to get a grasp on the top athletes in the sport. He does it in a little bit of a different environment than I do. He doesn't go to as many competitions, but he watches a lot of them from home, and it can provide a different perspective. But a lot of the time, at the end of the day, we come on pretty similar takeaways with most of the athletes. And also, it's difficult. A top 200 in the world is a lot of people to evaluate. Obviously, if you're putting 200 on the list, there's some other people that I've thought about that aren't on the list. And I think especially on the women's side, I think I even wrote this in the article for the last 50. I feel like there's probably another 50 or maybe even 100 women that I could have put in that group. And it's just sometimes it's a matter of proximity of where I've been and what I've seen compared to where I haven't been. So, for example, German Throwdown happened this last weekend. I wasn't in Germany. There are a few athletes who competed there that are on the list, including the winner, or Nicole here. Congratulations to her. But there's probably another half dozen athletes that if I was there in person to see the competition, I may have considered them for one of the spots on the list where I have considered some other athletes who I have seen compete in competition. And that's another aspect of doing this that's pretty difficult, is not all of the athletes compete that often or compete in venues where we can see what they're doing unless we're physically there. So there's certainly some limitations on the lower end of the list because of that. And then at the top end of the list, especially once we get into the top 50, which I think we're going to try to get there a little bit more quickly than we did last week, where we know a ton about those athletes and we can have a little bit more probably well-rounded conversation. So I'll let Patrick kind of guide us through. I think we probably won't spend too much time on the lower 50 or even 100 compared to what we did on the men's side, and try to get into more of the conversations that are going to be quite interesting at the top of the list, I hope.
Yeah, so if you want to follow along with the list, obviously we published this last night on B.Friendly.com, so B.FriendlyFitness.com. So yeah, feel free to go there, and yeah. So all right, 151 to 200. Well, John, do you have anything you want to add before we start?
No, let's get after it.
All right.
Well, I guess I'll say this. I think I'm gonna be less. I know more guys than I know girls, especially in this realm of like fitness. Until we get to like the top 50, like the 200 to 150 people. Like I just don't expect to know a ton of people. I know names, but like not. That's it. It's just names. If you
Yeah,
don't, if you don't matter, I don't know you. I only know the people that matter.
Quote
And
of
I
the
mean
day.
that with all due respect. I only know the people that matter.
and there's more men that matter too because you're trying to compete with those guys for a spot at a semifinal eventually.
Yeah,
Fair?
those guys I just know because I see them in
You go to some
or
competitions. Yeah.
qualifiers and stuff like that.
So this portion of the list, 151 through 200, there are all of the athletes from Africa that I have on this list are in this. Hi, Tyler. Yeah, I have had a conversation with Tanner about that. I can't remember the last time he's done an individual competition, which is what I told him. He's a very, very talented on the team side of things. I would love it if he did some individual competitions. You know, like it's great to see him at a Wadapalooza, even if it was in the RX division, and see where he could stack up. Obviously, RX division at Wadapalooza is very competitive, and there are some athletes like that on the women's side too. He's actually already reached out to me about Winter Nicolette Rodriguez. And Winter is just, as far as I know her, she's a team athlete, and she can almost always exclusively competes on a team. She has popped up maybe once or twice here in an individual competition, but I don't. If she ends up competing individually this year, certainly she would be in the top 200. And are also athletes on this list who competed team last year that were unsure about what they're going to do this upcoming year, and some of them will definitely go on teams, will be removed from the list once they do. This is all kind of projecting towards the athletes that I think could potentially be participating in the individual part of the CrossFit Games season in 2024. So on this spot,
is there anybody on this list that you think, for instance, like Marissa Flowers, like she can do some freaky things. She's a very specialist athlete, but I would argue is on the downturn of her career. Is this all those type of athletes, or is there anybody on the ascension?
I would say, yeah, definitely a mix. For example, Brianna Dunbar, who's one spot ahead of her, just got third place at Charlotte Classic this year. Last year at the Charlotte Classic, she was the winner of the RX division. So moved up from the RX to the elite division and podiumed there. So she would be an example of someone on this list who's kind of on the way up. There's some others that maybe not so sure about, like 162, Francesca Hoger. She got second place at Finland that I was at in August. She got fourth place this last weekend in Germany, and she was disappointed in that finish. I think it came down to a pretty small margins on one or two of the workouts based on what she'd said about it. She's a little bit older though, but she's also kind of like getting better from what I can tell as she's getting older. So she might be kind of an in-between, but definitely there's a blend of some athletes. Evie Hollis, for example, a few years ago was sixth place at a semifinal and almost made the CrossFit Games. She hasn't had any performances like that since, so she's been sliding consistently down the list. Like you said, Dunbar can be sliding up. Hogar kind of waiting to see. So a good blend of those things here. There are all of the athletes from Africa that I've included on the list are here. Michelle Besnet, Michelle Morand, and Christina Livadatakis. Most of them don't do competitions outside of the ones that are inside the CrossFit Games season, so it's pretty difficult to assess exactly how good they are. Christina's never made it to the games. Both Michelles have the last 2 years and have finished towards the bottom of the field. And when I see that, it basically makes me think that there are likely a lot of other women that if they had the opportunity to compete at the games would also be ahead of them. Is this too low of a ranking for them? I'm not really sure. I mean, those are athletes like the ones, and even the ones right above Basnet there, the ones from Asia. Like I would love to see some of these athletes go and compete at some other competitions. Or Cohen has been doing that this year. I've seen her compete in both Madrid and in Finland, and I do think that she's getting better. Those are not the highest ranking Asian athletes on the field, as there are some women from Asia that have been doing actually well at the CrossFit Games, relatively speaking, the last couple of years. But we do, while I am, if I think even if I thought the top 200 in the women were all from North America, I would still include people from other parts of the world because we're going to see those athletes have relevant performances at semifinals and be in contention to represent their continents or regions, I guess it'd be called, at the games. And I want people to have some touch point on who the potentially competitive athletes are in those fields, while also understanding that there are women from North America, Europe, Oceania, etc., that won't make it to the games that are probably also better than them or fitter than them.
Hey, Brian, I got a question. Is Katie Brazil, is that Katie Trombetta?
I think so. The last two names on the list are actually athletes who I got some when I put out a little call to Instagram last week about some athletes that might not be on our list that we should be on the look at. And those two, her and Justine, are athletes that someone did mention to me are going to be trying to make a push back into competitive CrossFit this year. So just kind of threw them there at the bottom of the list as people to potentially make their way up this list as the season goes on, if they're as good as advertised.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. For those that don't know, Kate Trombetta competed at the 2019 games. I think she got a qualifying spot through Rogue. I believe it was through Rogue that she got a qualifying spot through that year. And then she subsequently failed a drug test that year. So her suspension's obviously up. And I think since then she's been I know she coached a teen athlete last year at the games, and I got to talk to her then. I think she has 2 children, and she's from the area. She's from Bloomington, Illinois, I believe, and I know her husband. So I was just kind of curious on that. And like you said, there is a really good mixture of what John said too. Some athletes, some veterans on maybe regional semifinal type athletes on the downside of their career, but then you also have a really good mixture of like former teen alumni athletes and younger athletes like Lindsey Porter, Kayla Stefano, who won the games over Haley Adams in 2017 as a teenager, and Carson Wolf, Ava George, Faith Ferguson. So, yeah.
Any other names that jump out at you, John, or comments, questions about this section of the list?
I think Rose Scott has I think she can climb this list. She's probably the biggest name that sticks out to me that I think could climb.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that is usually needed and sometimes missing for athletes at the top end of the sport of CrossFit is being strong enough. Rose is extremely strong, especially with the Olympic weightlifting. For me, she hasn't put together maybe the top end performance, a complete performance at an elite level competition or a semifinal that I would like to see from her, but definitely not ruling that out. And I do think it's good to acknowledge her here amongst these women as someone who can potentially push quite a bit higher on this list.
Yeah,
I agree. All right,
I agree.
next.
Yeah. I believe this is the first year she's not doing grid, so I think she's like dedicating herself to just regular CrossFit. So, all right, we'll move on to the next 50.
Yeah, and I would say, look, I'll just kind of talk about this collection of 50 women as John kind of takes in what he sees here. I think that this is an area where there's, to me, probably a lot more recognizable names and a lot of potential in this realm. There's a decent amount of women on this list here, again, from North America. I don't think there's that many Europeans in this grouping, and then there's some from a few of the other continents. But especially there's a little grouping there from Oceania, 110 through 112. And then Shahad Boudebs, who was at the games last year representing Asia. And Patrick, you're highlighting these names?
Yeah.
Lucy McGonigal.
Yep.
A couple Bailey Rogers there, who was at Rogue a couple years ago. Nicole here, who I mentioned, had just won the German Throwdown. Ellie Hiller, who had a great performance in Crash Crucible. And there are a bunch of women on this list who are, competing in some off-season competitions. Lydia Fish, Emma Harvang. And so we've gotten to see Brianna Wallen at a top 10 finish at Crash this year after coming back from giving birth. Katie Callior, who just won the Charlotte Classic. And it's nice, for me, it's nice to have actual touch points from some of these athletes in the off season. Hannah Black, who made a big name for herself at the semifinal last year, and some people may think should be quite a bit higher on this list. We saw her compete at Crash Crucible, which was a very different style of competition programming than what we saw at the semifinal, and where I think she was able to show some of her tremendous skill sets and strengths at the semifinal. We saw some of the maybe holes that are still in her well-rounded fitness game there. Caroline Klutz, who's a master's athlete and would have done quite well at Crash Crucible against the elite division as well. Allison Wynn, we're going to actually get to see her in Dubai in a couple weeks. So like I said, I really like that there are a lot of athletes on this list who are competing in the off season and giving us an extra chance to kind of see where they're at before next year's semifinals. All right, John, what have you noticed while I was saying all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Hannah Black should be higher than she is. I think I when you have when you have lifting ability the way she does, I think it's easier to improve the other stuff relative to everybody else where lifting is a weakness. Meaning she can place higher than these other girls that are ahead of her when lifting is their weakness. I think at Crash, it was multiple events that just were like really bad for her, and in semifinals it will never be like that. Like the way semifinals are is always going to line up good for her. The way those events are similar to Jason Hopper, he's always going to be really good at semifinals. I feel like Hannah Black is going to be similar to that. I'm not saying she's
Would
going to make
you
the games, but
would you say that like where would you say that her running and like top end gymnastics is compared to Jason?
worse.
Yeah, like and those are the
Especially running, because Jason's a good runner.
yeah, and I think that if you want to make, especially if you're wanting to make the CrossFit Games, I think those are three things that you like definitely need to be good at if you want to be good in this sport. Have the top end lifting capacity, especially with the snatch, and she obviously has that. Have the capacity for high skill gymnastics under sometimes high volume. I don't think that she has that right now. And to have the running is like something that the more and more time that I spend around the top athletes in this sport, the more that I realize that it is a massive separator. There are some women, especially, and one male especially, that have had some high level success without running extremely well. But for the most part, the guys and girls that are doing the best can also run pretty well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm just saying, as far as you put these people in other competitions, I think she's going to improve more than the other girls are going to, because she has strength in her back pocket. Like, she will continue to get better and better, where other girls will stay the same because lifting's always going to be their weakness. For example, like Haley Adams. Haley Adams was the fifth fittest woman in the world with last place in strength events. She's never going to be better than fifth place in the world because of that. Right. So like I feel like there's probably a lot of women that are at their peak, they're at their top end. This is what they are. A lot of women. I think this is the case for a lot of women. And the only thing that they don't have is strength. And it's not gonna come to them as easy as running is to Hannah Black.
Maybe, but we could contrast the Haley Adams example with Danny Spiegel. Danny Spiegel has top end strength, and
I
she's max.
don't
I know,
believe
I
she
know, I know.
chooses. Go ahead.
Well, we've had a conversation about this before, and we've had conversations about Haley before, but they are two well-known athletes with the total opposite kind of problems, right? Haley's elite, top-end lifting.
The difference is I see Haley lifting in almost every single Instagram video, and every single Instagram
no,
thing I
but
see of
Danny,
Danny Spiegel is not running.
does she
That's
post
the
very
difference.
much? Does she post very much training content at all these days?
You want to count how many lifting posts she has versus running posts?
I don't follow her too
I
closely on
don't either.
Instagram, but
But I'm just
most of the
willing
stuff
to
that
bet that they outweigh each other. Huh? What do
yeah,
you think?
probably. I mean, I don't see you posting that much about your rowing and running. There's just that you're doing it. It's more
I do it
boring to
on the
post about
story.
it.
Yeah.
I know, but anyway, it's the point is that Danny is an elite level lifter, and she's kind of maxed out at around 20th. Well,
Yes.
Haley is elite level at upper body pulling, core, running, and she's maxed out around 5th. And so, I think that it's just a case study, since you chose one athlete on one end and I'm choosing one on the other. We see that having the elite level running and upper body pulling and core capacity can yield a higher performance despite having not very elite lifting, as opposed to the other way around.
Okay. My combat with that would be like, do you think Danny Spiegel can become a better runner if she wanted to be?
I think she has become a better runner in the last 2
Better
years.
than she is. Relative to the field. Because we've had this argument too. Relative to the field, if she continues to work hard at running, she could
I'm
she could
excited to
place
see.
better in a running event.
I
Because
want to.
Haley's not going to place higher than last. She's not going to, no matter
I'm
what she
excited
does.
to. I'm excited to see how you do in your next running event.
Me too. I'm really excited.
Because
I'm
you
super
are
excited.
you are elite strength athlete, right? Like you already have that check mark, and so you are a case study for your argument right now of if you can spend a year, because last year, for people who don't know, John competed at the Fittest Experience. He had was it a top 5 finish on a lifting event
It was around there. I don't know.
and a bottom
You
5 finish
know,
on a
you know
running
what it
event.
was.
I know I was 72nd out of 75 people on the run.
We'll just say it was about a top 5 and a bottom 5 on the running and lifting. And you're doing this competition again this year,
Mm-hmm.
and you've been working primarily this year on the capacity stuff,
Yes.
and probably your elite level, your top end lifting numbers are same or a little lower, but maybe your
Yeah.
barbell cycling strength at moderate percentages is a little bit better.
100%.
Yeah. So you've been doing the work that we would want someone like a Danny Spiegel or a Hannah Black to do.
Right.
And
My argument is I think Hannah Black is doing that work too.
yeah, and we'll
Or she should be. And if she's not, then she's dumb.
well, or
No, it's the truth. Don't be political about it. If she's not doing that.
Hey, well, no, there's another explanation. It's not that she's dumb. For some people, it's really difficult to go in every day and do the things that demoralize you, that make you feel bad about yourself, that are hard.
Then you're in the
And
wrong sport.
that's true, but that doesn't mean she's
Don't
necessarily
take up Olympic lifting.
dumb. That would be interesting to see her Olympic lifting, because obviously she's great at it, but I don't know how that would necessarily stack up against other women in her weight class that are in the sport of Olympic weightlifting right now. But I think Hannah Black's a great athlete for us to pinpoint in this section of the list for a broader conversation in general that will also definitely factor in at the top end for the women as it did for the men. There's a difference between showing up 1 year and doing something that's noteworthy and showing up consistently over many competitions and many years and doing something similar over and over and over again. So for Hannah Black wasn't on my radar at all last year. And then we saw what she did at the semifinals, and she certainly got my attention. And I saw what she did at Crash Crucible. I didn't pick her in the top 5. I got crucified for that prior to the competition. She didn't finish anywhere near the top 5 in that competition. And so we got to see a different example of a style of test that you say won't be at the semifinals, but it is part of fitness overall. And JR was testing for high-level skills and some kind of unorthodox implements in combination that were good, meant to expose elite athletes in one way or another. And that happened to her, and it happened to almost everyone there. Mm-hmm. So I'll be watching this year to see if she can replicate what was at semifinals last year, or maybe even improve upon that. And if she does, absolutely, she will make a surge up this list.
That's it. And then I love where you have Ariel. I am a little bit biased. I got a fun story about Ariel if you want to hear it.
Absolutely.
Fitnessy story. So when we were at Ariel is a brute strength athlete. She's she's under the same coach that I have, Coach L. And she, like, the third day of camp, where everybody's roasted, everybody's just like we've been to war for 3 days, and like
when was this?
Nobody can move.
Their camp. What was it? October, right?
Yeah. It was like a couple months ago, a month and a half, couple months ago. And we did a workout where it was 6 snatches and then 8 burpees, bar facing burpees on the minute, every minute, so you can't do it anymore. I think the weights were 135 and 95. It was, I think, 135 and 95. If I'm wrong and it was 95-65, I apologize, but I think it was 135-95. 6 snatches, 8 bar-facing burpees every minute on the minute until you can't do it anymore. For the record, I was out at like minute 8 or 9.
How was that relative to like the rest of the guys, though?
I was the third to last guy.
So you did well.
No, I would say I did bad. Rankin was the Holt. You know Rankin Holt. He was the best guy at that. I mean, he was the fittest guy there at the camp. and he's not like heavy, so he could move it. He did like 16 minutes. Kelsey Keel did about 16 minutes, 15 minutes, around there. But Ariel, everybody was done, and then I thought she was gonna go. She looked like she was only gonna get one more minute than Rankin, like she beat him, but like that was gonna be it. And I forgot to mention, when you hit the 10 minutes, you go 8 snatches, 8 bar facing burpees, so it goes up 2. And then she did it for 5 more minutes after that. Like she did 20 minutes. Like 20 minutes was L. I think L was like, let's see who can get 20 minutes, thinking that it was impossible because he likes to make you do impossible things that nobody can do. And then she freaking did it. And it was one of those things where it was like, this person is just in a different league than everybody else in this particular workout. You know what I mean? And those are very rare to find, especially at like I mean, you got Kelsey with strength things. She's like that, right? But it's rare to see that. And it was a pleasure seeing that. She had that. And this is a workout where it's just mental hurt, physical hurt, something Ricky Garrar would be really, really good at, right? And it was just a pleasure to see.
I think that kind of goes back on her background. I'm a big proponent of, former athletes, and her being a former high-level collegiate athlete. I mean, she was captain of the rowing team at University of Michigan. So there's no question about her capacity and her endurance, but it's just not having an engine. It's about suffering,
the mental toughness factor to it.
Yeah. That's part of building endurance and becoming that type of athlete. I mean, you look at every triathlon, it's not because they just go running every day. It's a mental thing. It's half mental. And I think she has those attributes. Yeah, I mean, I was really impressed by what she did at Crash. I thought she'd be a lot better at some of the gymnastics, having sort of a gymnastics background that she's, that she has. But, for some gymnasts, it is hard to transfer some of that ability over to CrossFit because they are asked to do things that typical gymnasts don't do.
Yeah, she had a couple of very impressive standout performances at Crucible that certainly got her on the radar. But nice to have the insights from the camp, John. Thank you.
Yeah, I do.
Any other standouts for you in this section of the list?
Lucy McGonigal, the youngest person on the list. There were some people that questioned how later on we had a fellow competitor listed higher. She's at 141. Rebecca Foussier at 119.
And I think she falls under the camp of you did it 1 year and then can you stack it year over year. Like I didn't. You notice I didn't jump down your throat about Rebecca Foussier. I think we're in the same camp about her.
Yeah, I mean, look, she made the games a couple years ago.
She's a 10-legless rope climb event made her whole entire year, and then until like we see something, until she can make it without having 10 legless rope climbs, I don't think she'll be. Mm-hmm. She's pretty peaked out. Like I hope she's not. She's getting stronger. She is lifting every time I see her. She's lifting, but she's one of the ones where I think it's going to be really hard to improve her weakness. Versus Hannah Black, I think can improve her weakness. Can improve, right? Like that's the person we should have taken is Rebecca Foussier, because they're much more similar in fitness than Haley Adams, right?
Or Danny Spiegel,
or Danny Spiegel.
And Foussier, like she made the games. And after that, I put out the rankings, and she was outside the top 40 by maybe a couple dozen spots, and I got a lot of criticism for that. And I was like, well. And this is just something that I value. And I
was with you on that.
And Jay Crouch is a good example of this on the men's side. I am very, very well versed in who Jay Crouch is. I've seen Jay Crouch dominate competitions in Australia for years, show up to the games and have middle of the pack, respectable performances for a couple of years. We saw what he did at the games this year with the top 10, backed it up with the top 10 at Rogue, and I still ranked him 17th. And he did not like that. And a lot of people who support him didn't like that. That's okay. Being ranked in the top 20 in the world is it's incredible. And if you look at the guys that are ranked in the top 10 in the world, those are people who have shown consistency over time of being able to do that time and time and time again. Could I be totally wrong about Jay? Is he the 8th fittest man on the earth and he's going to be just as good or better next year? Sure, that's definitely possible. Is it possible that he has a little bit of a regression next year and he finishes 15th or 20th instead of 8th? Or that the next time he goes to an off-season competition like a Rogue, I don't know that he'll ever travel to compete in Dubai or Wadapalooza, that he doesn't have the same. Yeah, that's also possible. But it remains to be seen. Most of the people that I have ranked ahead of him, and we'll see this similar on the women's side when we get up there, and it's a good example about Fusile, is we had kind of hedging our bets. We're saying, yeah, she saw that there was some potential there. She had a good season. Let me see her do it again. And until that, I'm going to put her kind of in the mid 60s. She didn't. She went backwards from where she was the previous season and backwards, in some off-season competitions compared to an athlete who you'd say is a perennial games athlete, which is what some people wanted to see her ranked as after only making it one time. There are a lot of athletes, about 25 to 30% turnover year over year at the games, which means, and many of the athletes that make it once, they never make it back. It's very difficult to make it even one time. So kind of wait to see with some of these athletes before making these massive assumptions about how good they can always be. What was that comment, Patrick?
Basically, is what someone shows on their. Here, let me read it. Is what someone posts on their social media an accurate source of information as to what they are doing during their training? I would say no, but but like John says, it's the information that we're given. Like Matt Fraser's notorious for saying, it's like, I'm not going to post my training on there. I'm not going to post my PR. Why do I want to show people what I'm doing? And but
Is
then you do have athletes.
Card? Is that
it looks like
her
it
as
almost.
a Pokemon?
Yeah,
that's awesome. John, what do you think about this question?
I mean, 100% what PC said. I agree 100%. I do not think he is an accurate source of any type of their training, but what they post is what we see. James Sprague posts a 355 clean and jerk. Guess what? James Sprague is getting stronger, right? When Danny Spiegel starts posting running interval workouts like Christy Aramo used to do, I believe she's training hard. But even if she's improved her running, as Brian loves to say, she has been a better runner. When she's not last place anymore, then that's when I'll start taking notice. But if you're a top 20 fittest woman in the world, and it just I don't know. It just always feels like the priorities are not what they should be, and maybe that's just a bias on my part, and I should get over it. That's probably what is the truth. Is I should just let her be, but I don't have.
Well, but look, she is definitely a role model for people. She's definitely someone that people look up to, and see her have success on and off the floor of competition, and we'll emulate that. And if she did take it upon herself to really, really get down to the work when it comes to the running and make that a priority, to not just do it, but also advertise that she's doing it, there's the potential that she could inspire other people to work on things that they don't like working on or aren't just naturally good at too. So you could still, want to see that from her for some different reasons as well.
And the second she does it, I'm going to be the biggest freaking proponent of her. Like, the second you get, like, mid-pack in the run, like, man, Danny Spiegel's been working on her running. You see that she's going to be dangerous because she still has her strength stuff. I'm going to be all up on it. It's yet to happen.
Oh, he's going to blow his mic. John, you're going to blow your mic.
That's why I don't, have a bunch of respect for her, because it's never happened. She's been in the game 10 freaking years. You know what I mean? That's why I feel so strongly about it. But I promise you, I'd be her biggest fan if maybe not.
I'd say 7 years.
Maybe not her biggest fan. But
I think 2017 regionals was like her first.
Quick hitters on other people. If anybody has, Jessica Androsnik, if you Google Jessica Androsnik, 50 strict handstand push-ups for time, it is amazing.
Yes.
She is if Colton Mertens was a female, it would be Jessica Androsnik. Now they're not the same fitness level, but she can do some really freaky things that other people just can't do. And it's always fun to see freaky things.
I think that she's definitely on the upside. I mean, she was very close at the West semifinals of securing a game spot not the West semifinals, at the West Coast Classic, and then she had a very devastating elbow injury, and had to sit out the whole year. And then last year she started training with Brute Strength. She's with Dom in Cookeville, so she moved to Cookeville. So she has a lot of potential. There's a lot of upside with her, and I think being in that environment in Cookeville with the Mayhem people, and she's shown the willingness to do whatever it is. She's moved. She bought a camper. She's been living out of a camper when she was down in Florida and Naples, and now she's living out of that camper in Cookeville. So she's putting in the work. So it's very interesting. I'm very interested, like you said, John, to see what she does this year. But yeah, she is kind of a freak when it comes to some of those movements.
PC, will you just scroll down just a little bit? I want to see through 150 what the total number of women in North America that I have on this list is.
Sure.
82. And that's, so, and only 80 will go to semifinals this year. So most of these women we're expecting to make a semifinal. Of course, the distribution east to west can be not perfect, but a lot of the women on this list are women that you're going to see at semifinals this year, and a couple of them I think are likely to be contending for top 20 spots at those semifinals.
Couple names. Oh, go ahead, John.
Okay. Last one I want to throw out is Lydia Fish.
Yes.
And maybe you knew before, because I know she was in the teen athletes, but I don't really pay attention to the teen athletes until they start playing with the big girls. But Lydia Fish, I felt like Craft Crucible was her coming out party. I knew she was really good on her hands, and that was about it. It's about all I knew. I think she PR'd her thruster on the thruster ladder, which is cool. But it really seemed like the only thing holding her back from making a semifinal, or even like making a push to be upper tier semifinals, is her strength. But she's super young, so I think she probably out of everybody on this 101 to 150, I think she has the ability to climb more than anybody else. And then before I forget, because you started talking about Jay Crouch. Jay, if you're listening, I know you're more of a fan of Brian's than mine. But
maybe not anymore.
But you were on the mountain. That's all I have to say. Okay.
There you go.
Right.
How many total men and were on the mountain?
It was 12 to 10. 12, 14.
Okay.
It was like 21, 12 to 9.
21 total men on the mountain?
No. 12
total.
men, 9 women.
Gotcha. Okay, so you do have them ranked a little higher than me relative to the men in the world.
Yeah.
And it's not a ranking. It's just who do I think could
levels. It's levels.
climb. Yeah, it's levels.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He's worthy of climbing the mountain.
Yeah. Couple names: Sasha Nueves. I mean, I know this is someone that a couple years ago everyone was really high on. Kind of regressed. I mean, she went team, kind of regressed. Her at 139. She's fairly young. So a lot of people thought she was the future, and she still could be the future of South America in terms of team athletes or games athletes. Another one is where was it? Oh,
is she
Gabby
still
McClellan. No, she was with Proven last year. I don't know where she's at now. So I know her husband used to be a Proven coach. He might still be. I have to double check with that. So I don't know. The last thing I heard is she's still down in Argentina, where she's from. Another name, where's Gabby McClellan? She got hurt last year. A lot of people remember her from 2 years ago, that semifinal run she had. Very tall, very a power-based athlete. I'd be interested to see what she does this year coming back from an injury. And you already mentioned Lydia Fish. Lexi Neely is another name, that a teen athlete, very similar to Lydia. But yeah, there's a good mixture of veterans and rookies, just kind of like in the top 50, but these are maybe a different level. And then, I got to recognize my girl Ake, still hanging in there.
There you go. 101 to 150.
All right. Moving up. So this the top 100. Oh, that's breakdown to top 100. All right, we're gonna go to 51 through 100. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, should be a lot more recognizable and well-accomplished names on this list. There are also a handful of athletes on this list who competed in the team division last year, and I'm not entirely sure what their intentions are for this season. Kind of a grouping of them there, around 60, with Kyra Milligan, Brittany Weiss, and Devin Kim. Actually, we will get to see all three of them compete as individuals in Dubai, which is always exciting. Another one is Lena Richter. I'm pretty confident she'll go on a team. I thought about taking her off the list, but she had talked about going individual last year, did compete individually at a couple of competitions. Didn't do as well as I maybe had expected there, but super impressive athlete. Got to train with her a little bit in Norway this off season. And it's always kind of tough to know with the team athletes that do end up going individual where they're going to fall. Kelsey Keel being another one who competed in a team last year, and I believe is going individual this year. Also have a kind of a grouping of women in the low 60s there. Larissa Cunha, Victoria Campos, Alexia Williams, that I consider to be the top women in South America. Larissa Cunha coming back from a 2-year suspension for a failed drug test that she was able to prove a tainted supplement for. I kind of feel like she's the person to beat. Maybe her and Campos are like the two that you're going to have to unseat if you want to get a game spot out of South America. So we'll let John weigh in on them. And a couple from Asia in here, Anastasia and Dawan, they're at 82 and 83. A few other South Americans, 84, 5, 6, 7, Julia, Fernanda, Emily, and Louisa, that I think, are going to be kind of in the mix down in South America. And then, a spattering of athletes from all over North America and Europe. John, this was a section of the list last year where you really railed into me last week about the men. So who did I really screw up on here?
Okay. We're probably going to disagree on this, but Pinheiro's the roided up girl, right?
Is she failed the drug test?
Andrea Pinheiro. All right, you gonna let Lance Armstrong your hero? Is that what you're saying?
Is she suspended for drugs?
No, she is not suspended for drugs.
No, she's not.
So what do you want me to do?
Is she the roided up girl? Yes or no? Am I thinking of the same person?
Yes.
Yes or no? Okay, yes. Okay. The fact that you can say yes and you 100% agree with it, you're just too political to say so. I don't think she should be on the list. She is.
I know who you're talking about because we've had this conversation in a private group thread.
Yeah. Why is she on the list?
Because she's competing in individual CrossFit competitions and placing in the top 10 regularly in South America, and she's eligible to compete. I mean, let's not focus too much on her.
Why? She's in the comments.
She's in the comments right now?
Yeah, Andrea, listen, no offense, girl. It really isn't. I need like a drug test every single month to prove that you are not on anything or haven't been on anything in the past. I like all that stuff. Okay? And if you're not, it's a compliment. It's the biggest compliment because I don't believe that you can look like that and not be on drugs. So if you're not, it's the biggest compliment you can have. And if you are, I need you to prove it. I'm sorry. And then I'll get off of it. I'll be off of it.
But based on her performances, is this an appropriate spot for her on the list?
I don't know. She did masters, right? You're including masters people?
Yeah, we had Caroline Klutz on the previous 50 athletes, and she's still continuing to place amongst these women in South America at the semifinal level.
Just like the men with Scott and Sam.
Yeah.
While John's looking, a couple things. Let me remove this.
You don't like Freya. Freya shot down her list, didn't
that was someone that I mean,
I don't mind
think
the
it's
placement at all, but it's just funny. I feel like she just went down.
Yeah, but I think she's competing in Dubai this year.
I don't I don't know if she is or not. I know she's with Training Think. She switched and she's with Training Think Tank now.
I'm not certain if she's competing in Dubai or not. I think she might be, and I hope that she is.
Mhm.
She's an athlete that,
Yeah.
similarly to Rebecca Fustelé, had a great season, made it to the CrossFit Games, did, you know, okay there for a rookie, I guess, and hasn't done that much since then. So looking for potentially another opportunity for her to shine in the way that she did that season. Otherwise, this is kind of where I feel that she's at right now. It sounds like you feel similarly, John.
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem at all with I just think it's funny that we think the same on that because usually you hold people, you give people more of a staying power than I do. Like when I think you've fallen, I think you're falling. Um, but
But I feel like Freya's one of these athletes that over the course of the next 12 months, she's either going to move back up 30 to 40 spots, or she's going to fall 100 spots
or
and
legit,
never be relevant again in
and be
terms of,
done.
yeah.
Yeah,
But,
I
but
agree.
we need a couple more data points on her. That's why I love it when the athletes, I don't mind if it's only once in the off season. I love it when the athletes compete in the off season because the season is very limiting, right? You have, opening quarterfinals. It's hard to really assess too much based on that. So you get hopefully a chance at semifinals to do something. And if you happen to make the games, which is very difficult to do for most of these women that are not on that, like 51 through 200, it's pretty difficult. It's no guarantee that any of these girls are making it to the CrossFit Games. And so if they only compete in the season, we get one weekend to evaluate and see them if they don't compete in a relevant off-season competition. So Freya, I would love to see her compete this off-season once or twice, and then obviously hopefully at the semifinal, and maybe she can, refine some of that, like Patrick said, with maybe a new training environment or coaching, coaches in her corner, maybe refine some of that excellence we saw a couple years ago.
Couple things. John, please jump in if you see anything as well. But I don't. Kelsey Keel being ranked so high. I mean, especially ahead of someone like her former teammate Ashley Wozni, who we got to see Ashley compete last year. She until the final day was really close to earning a game spot, but then to have Kelsey, who we haven't seen compete as an individual since 2019, having her ranked so high, I think is that based on reputation, or what are you basing that off of?
John, does that strike you as unusual placement for her?
She's higher than I thought you would have her. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not mind it. I'm not gonna argue it. I
Sure.
believe in brute strength, and I believe in Coach L, and I see my own improvements, and I see where things are heading, and she's on the same path. She's much better than I am, and on the same path. So like I have no problem with the ranking, but she is higher than I thought you'd have her. If you care to explain.
No, I think that's totally a fair criticism. I would say based on maybe if you look at the next 20 women after her, more give or take a couple, that they have done more relevant things at individual competitions in recent time periods than she has, and may feel slighted by having her ahead of them there. Yeah, I guess I am gambling a little bit on her individual potential this season based on reputation, conversations I've had with her, and the things that I believe she's working on. But absolutely, and she, can fall into a similar category as potentially a Hannah Black or a Danny Spiegel, and probably somewhere in between those two. Incredibly strong athlete, great power output. I know that she has been working on her running, which is something that's a struggle for her. I think she had a really good and fun season last year as part of a team. Her teammate was Wozni her teammate last year, Patrick?
No, it was
It's Emily Lundberg, right?
Yeah, it was Lundberg.
Yeah, that's what I
Wozni
thought.
went
Yeah,
individual. Yeah. Ashley
Emily
went individual.
Lundberg. Okay, you confused me for a second. Emily Lundberg, who's 77 on this list, they had an amazing season last year, I thought, and it feels like a good time for Kelsey to give an individual run. So could I be way off on this one? I guess so, but I could see her competing for a games spot in North America this season, and this is kind of the realm in which a lot of those athletes kind of fall.
Yeah. And again, I wasn't criticizing her like that, the spot. I'm just like, the data point that I'm seeing is like, I've just seen her as a team athlete, and then I see someone like Ashley, who's a younger athlete, went individual last year, did really well in semifinals, so well that she got invited to be a part of the demo team. But I just thought it was kind of weird to have Kelsey ahead of Ashley, who we do have more data points on in terms of Ashley. But again, it's your list. Maddie Sturt, I know that's one of that's one of Halpin's favorites there.
Why?
I mean, I think, and this might be another reason why Jay might not like us, but Maddie, I just think that she she made the games at a very young age, but I think it's the
4
point
years in a
now.
row.
Yes, and she's still relatively young. I think she's under 26 years old now. She might be 26, but I think right now what she's shown over the last, I mean, she hasn't competed since 2018, correct?
No, she has.
I mean, like at the games.
I
But
don't mean why like badly. I'm just that's
Yeah.
a kind of a random person to be like this. I'm just curious why.
well, I just think out of Oceania, everyone would. I think they kind of like dubbed her like the next athlete to come out of Oceania, and she was for 4 years. But I think now I think she's being passed up in Oceania. And I think personally have at number 59. Obviously, I think last year I'm a big fan of Gracie Walton. I think she is probably her along with Ellie are the future of Oceania. And not to say that Maddie isn't, because she's still relatively young, but I just think these other athletes have kind of passed her up.
Do
Scroll down,
her and Jay train together?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
PC,
interesting.
just scroll down for just a second so I can see the number of Oceania athletes in the top 100 for the females. 10. Yeah, and 9 from South America. But the 10 from Oceania, like I think that the women in Oceania, I'm hopeful that the worldwide ranking strength of field distributions award. Well, I guess
Give them
where's
another
Tia?
spot.
Where's Tia going to compete? She's going to compete in North America.
She did last year.
She didn't compete last year.
The year previous.
So
But that was during the whole. She got like that COVID exemption.
If Tia's competes in Oceania, I think they absolutely need 4 spots.
I agree.
Even if she competes in North America, I think that they could have 4 spots. I think that there is a depth of talent in Oceania on the women's side and the men's side that warrants having 4 qualifying spots to the CrossFit Games, as it is right now. And we'll get into the top 50 obviously and see some of the. I mean, Tia is counting as an in this list as an Oceanic athlete, but as you mentioned, Ellie Turner, Jamie Simmons. But right here, you just have Caitlin Van Zyl, Madeline Sturt, Gracie Walton. I think Emily DeRoy is actually 50 on this list. She made the games last year. I think she had an injury going into the games, which was kind of unfortunate. And then there are other young women. I think Emily Andrade, I think Hema Hawk, Brianni Chalice. Like, there's a depth of field there in Oceania that is
Georgia
pretty
Pryor.
impressive, but they don't always. A lot of them don't compete anywhere else, and it's really great when they do, because it gives us
hard, man.
It is hard. It is
Yeah.
like, and that's not their fault necessarily.
It's expensive for them.
And we have and we're going to have the Down Under CrossFit Championships coming up, which some of them will compete at, and we'll get another kind of data point, but it's a somewhat limited data point because there's very few to any other athletes from the top 100 in the world that are competing against them even once a year, let alone on a regular basis, which makes it hard to assess. And it's like, this is a perception I have that there are these up and coming athletes in Oceania on the women's side that could be competitive at the games, and I'd like to see them have another 1 or 2 spots there potentially. But we also don't really know until they do it. Gracie Walton is an athlete that many people are very high on this year, but most of those people that are high on their work with her or know her well. And it's, there's like, is she going to make the CrossFit Games this year? It's like, there's absolutely no guarantee of that. And if she doesn't, when will we see her compete?
Well, that's kind of like with Madeline. I mean, everyone kind of expected. I mean, every year it seems like everyone expects her to be at the games, but she hasn't made it to the games since 2018.
Yeah,
But
she's
yeah,
been.
she's still put on those lists. Like, you know, and I say Halpin because me and Halpin, I think last year kind of got in we got in a back and forth about this, and once again she failed to make it to the games. But like you said, they only have 3 spots. But this year there is a possibility that Tia and Ellie won't be competing Oceania, because we know Ellie is trying to get citizenship.
Yeah, and she was, disappointed in the fact that she didn't have that option last year.
Yes.
The rule book's not out yet, so we don't know for sure. I am a huge proponent of the option. If you have a citizenship, meaning you have a passport from a place, I think you should have the option to compete there. If you live in a place, I think you should have the option to compete there. Um, you know, and I feel like those are fairly straightforward things, but that's not what the rule book has always said, and then
Yeah.
we don't know what it's going to be this year, so we don't necessarily know. What I do believe, and I think Patrick's on the same page as me here, is that there are a lot of talented women in Oceania, and many of them are represented on this page, but not a lot. Most of the ones on this page, if not all of them, will not be at the CrossFit Games this year.
Yeah. Halpin, this was brought up on Instagram as well, and Halpin brought it up again. Yeah, Trissa Smith at 99, and the distance between Lucy and Trissa should be explained. And I think what he's saying is head to head, Lucy has beaten Trista, I think, on 2 occasions, and as a teen athlete. However, the data point we have is semifinals. Trista did a lot better than Lucy did at semifinals, with playing with elite not playing, but competing with elite individual women. But
yeah, it can be difficult. I mean, I think back to Kayla Stefano and Haley Adams, where Kayla Stefano was the dominant athlete, then all of a sudden Haley just like passed her by, and there was no comparison for the rest of their career. You can think about Emma Carey and Mal O'Brien. Emma Carey was beating Mal O'Brien at everything, and then all of a sudden she wasn't, and she passed her by. And so, the teenage competition can be taken with just like it is relevant. It's some of the limited information we have against them, but when you're thrown into that elite field, sometimes things play out a little bit differently. So from what I know about teenage athletes historically and what I've seen from those, maybe it's too big of a gap. I could give you that. Maybe I should have kind of gone maybe 10 to 15 places on either side, dropped Trista down a little, moved Lucy up a little bit closer to her, and I would not be upset with people who felt that way. I just see. Also, I could be wrong about this. I mean, I'm kind of projecting, but I see a higher potential for Trista than Lucy, and I'm open to the potential of being wrong about that. That's just what I see.
Justin Cutler has something to say.
Yeah, I know.
I
I think he made I think it's his one comment so far.
So Halpin for world rankings. So if you use Brian's top 100 the base of the distro, would be North America East 10, Europe 10, West 9, South America 3, Asia 2, Africa 1, and Oceania 6.
And I am assuming that he's making that based on a minimum of 1 per continent, because there are no women from Africa there. But that distribution, if that is actually what it is, that looks about right to me.
If Ellie and Tia were both in the West,
you would have to bring up the West, yeah. Well, Ellie would be West, Tia would be East.
I mean, I think you just take 2 away from Oceania, then you put 1 in both the other ones. East 11, West 10, Oceania 4.
I also
and then take 1 away from South America. They don't need 3 people.
I might have too many of them in the top 100, is what you're saying.
No, they don't need 3 people though. I'm saying the people that you talked about in North America that aren't necessarily ahead of these people, but you wanted to have diversity in your list. There are other girls in North America better than the South American girls, is what I'm saying. They don't need 3 people. If they have 3 worthy people and only 2 get in, tough. Like North America has 50 people that are the same good as the bottom 5. You know what I mean?
Just as good.
The same fit. They are. You know what I'm
Thank you.
saying when I
Yeah.
What
and
kind of
Africa
going
doesn't
on?
need a spot.
Yeah, kind of what John's going on. At what point does CrossFit use previous games finishes from those regions as a data point? Like, he brought up 3 South America, they get 3. But where did the South America athletes finish at the games? Both on
Yeah,
the
I mean,
men and women's
we've
side.
done studies on this previously, and
Yeah,
there are some exceptions. Roman has been an exception in
sure.
Asia, and more recently, Sung Choi and Seher Kaya, who we're about to see in the next list, have pushed inside the top 30. Guy Mayeros has been the exception on the men's side for South America, but outside of that,
And I mean, Jason Smith got 7th in 2017 too.
Yeah, but that's
And I know
2017.
I know, but
Yeah.
it's still the modern era. Like
Sure.
it's not like 2014.
I get it, but what I'm saying,
from those three competitive regions, it's very few and far between athletes that have have had performances outside of the bottom 5 to 8, depending on number of withdraws every year at the CrossFit Games once they make it there.
And it's not like Oceania. It's just one person if that does happen. It's not like they have 3 people that can do that.
Yeah, and in Oceania, we've had some cycling in and out where it's like, especially on the men's side, James Newberry didn't make it this year, but Royce Dunn did. Okay, Matt McLeod didn't make it this year, but Baden Brown did, and all of them have shown relevance at the CrossFit Games. Whereas the athletes from those other continents, they've sometimes recycled different athletes in there, but more often than not, by a large percentage, they're finishing near the bottom.
All right, I'm going to move us along. Oh, go ahead, John.
No, next.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to move us along. I do want to say Caitlin Van Zyl is the only only gladiator on both the men's and women's list. So good for. Oh no,
gosh,
James Newberry was on the men's list. Yeah. Luisa Marquez. It's someone that Brian, both of us, I think, been kind of expecting her to do well. When is that going to happen? She's someone that we both think highly of due to her age and experience as a team athlete, but seems like the last couple of years as an individual, she has yet to break through that wall. Mia Hesketh, I think having her like near Kelsey Keel, they're very similar type athletes. Mia is known for her strength, and I think that's that makes sense to me. And then I think that was it in terms of this list. Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised. There's quite a few women on this portion of the list that will probably end up going team. So you will see a lot of changing into this list sooner than later.
I feel pretty good so far. John hasn't crucified me yet.
I know. Well, that's about to change. So,
you think so? You think there's a place where I'm going to?
I don't know. We'll I guess we'll find out. All right, so we'll break into the top 50.
41 through 50. A couple athletes that made the games last year: Emily DeRoy, Rebecca Vidison for the first time, Seher Kaya and Sung Choi, who I mentioned. I feel like they are actually competitive and relevant female athletes globally coming out of Asia. A couple athletes here: Jordan Chefs, Chloe Wilson, Lauren Fisher, who were within striking distance of the games last year. And of course, Sarah Sigmundsdottir, who, is kind of at this point in her career is very unknown of what her top end potential continues to be.
Okay, so you have Sung Choi and Seher Kaya just because of the games.
I mean, 26 2 years ago for Sung Choi, 23rd for Seher Kaya this year. Yeah, I mean, I think that they are, I think
they don't make the games if they're in North America.
Yeah, but neither did Jordan Chefs, Chloe Wilson, or Lauren Fisher, Caroline Stanley last year. So, yeah, that's right.
No, I know, but like if you have
most of this list is people that most of this list didn't make the games last year.
Why is but you don't feel that way about Rebecca Vidison?
What do you mean?
She did make the games, and I'm saying you have a whole bunch of girls that didn't make the games ahead of her. That have never been to the games.
Vidison had the performance of her life at the semifinals last year, and snuck in with the last spot in Asia and didn't do that well at the CrossFit Games. Europe, excuse me. And these other women have shown more consistency over the last couple of years, even though Rebecca has one data
Garnes
point
and
that's better
Stanley
than.
and Wilson, who's never made the games. I see you're in semifinals. You're saying in semifinals, not the game.
Yeah, I mean Chloe Wilson. I think what is it? She's been within.
No. Chloe Wilson's been very consistently almost good enough.
Yeah, and it's I would say it's like comparable. I would say her and Vittesen's fitness's potential, what we've seen, is comparable. Wilson has shown more consistency at those levels than Vittesen, even though Vittesen had the one better performance last year. And I was impressed with her at semifinals. She totally caught me by surprise. I would not have thought I'd have her in the top 50 at all. If she does it again this year, you'll see her inside the top 40, maybe even higher.
Okay, so she's just kind of I need to see more for it. I need to see more.
Well, but yeah, because I have seen her compete in off-season competitions previously, and what she did at the semifinals last year was better than what she'd done at any of those off-season competitions. I believe she's working with Andre Houdet, and is showing me an extreme amount of potential as a coach. So I do think that there's a chance that we could see a repeat performance from her, and that will definitely be rewarded if it happens.
Like Rebecca was a rookie last year, but she has been around for a while. She was a team athlete for a while.
Yeah.
We have seen her. There's a lot of data points. She competed at Dubai, I think 2 years ago, or 2 years in a row, actually. And I think she competed at Lowlands as well. Wins the semifinal. So
what do you think about Sarah's being at this point on the list, John?
I don't know. I think Sarah's irrelevant. I think
Tough.
I just don't care. Like you can
marking it down.
If you
102.
If you put her 30th, I wouldn't care. If you put her 60th, I wouldn't care.
But a lot of people do care.
Until she does. No. But no, that's what I'm saying. Until she does anything good, it does like Sarah's just not gonna make a like. I think she's just done. I think the sport has passed her up. I hope it hasn't. I want Sarah to be successful. I like Sarah a lot, but it's been a long time since she's done anything relevant. Has it not?
Well, I mean,
in the CrossFit Games season, yes.
Yeah. Are you? But it seems like you're really holding her injuries against her.
Well, that's a part of sports,
man.
That's
a part of it.
I know, but they said
we could say
it's been a long
She actually
time.
reminds me a lot of Tracy McGrady from the NBA. I don't know if anyone here has much NBA history, but Tracy McGrady for a small period of time was as good as Kobe Bryant, but he couldn't stay healthy, and his career deteriorated because of it. And Sarah seems to be
what I'm
trending in that
saying is,
direction.
when Tracy McGrady's on the Rockets, I don't care about him.
Yeah.
Even though he's still, when he takes the floor, he's still someone that you have to show respect for. And he's going to do some great things, but he's not the athlete that he was before. I guess that's what you're saying. And it is a decent comparison, actually.
And so when we get to the top 50, we get to the top 40 people, like we're talking about the fittest women in the world. I'm constantly, the people who are on the way down, the people who are on the way up matter more and more to me than. And so, I just don't place a lot of value for it. That's where you have her. It's fine. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be mad or happy about it. I just think it's. And I feel
Is there a particular athlete on this list that you're really excited for their 2024 season? Of these 10,
not really.
I want to see what Jordan does.
Me too. I would say of the women on this list, she's probably the one that I'm most excited for. That I still think she has potential that we haven't seen her reach or accomplish.
Do you think any of these people have potential to be top 10 at the games ever in their career?
Like in their career? Well, I mean, Sarah and Lauren have. No, just kidding.
No. Okay.
I know.
Top 10 in their career. Top, maybe, probably not, but.
Yeah. All right.
I would say it's too early to.
That's my bar for if I kind of like.
Right, and I'm trying to.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right, and I have a totally different perspective than that, which is that I'm trying to illuminate the fact that sport at the top is bolstered up by the tiers below, and that there are incredibly hardworking, talented, fit, dedicated men and women at these places that I want to acknowledge and recognize. And yeah, it's very, very rare to make the top 10. And most of those athletes, once they get there, they stay there, and it's
They
hard to
stay
get in.
there, and it's very hard. I agree. I said top 20. Top 10's a lot. Top 10's
But
a lot.
I would say of the women on this list, Jordan Shefts and Emily DeRoy are two young athletes that I still think we have not seen the top end potential for them. And so those are two that I would be excited for. I was told that Emily came in with a little bit of an injury at the games last year, which was too bad. You know, she had obviously had a great semifinal and a good battle to get into the games. And would obviously, you know, it reminds me of guys like Keelan Henry that, you know, shows up there. I want to see what he can do. And he's got a hamstring injury from day one. And it's like, you know, we're never going to really know. So anyway, let's move on to the next one.
Oh, but Brian, I think a better analogy instead of T-Mac, Derrick Rose. Come on, you're Chicago. How do you not use Derrick Rose? I think Derrick Rose is probably better. But
I try to just so I was at a Portland Trailblazers game with one of my good friends who's a massive Portland Trailblazers fan when Derrick Rose got
Brandon
Oh,
injured
Roy.
one of the 6 times. And it was just so disheartening. It was like the last major injury that he had for the Bulls, and I just try to block that out. So thank you, Patrick.
Man, that sucks. That's such
I
a
did-
good comparison. Like it
I know.
just sucks. Like
Yeah.
it's.
It was, especially being in Chicago, born
No,
and
I
raised
mean like
in
for
Chicago.
Sarah. I'm saying
Yeah, for Sarah, yeah.
Like it's just
Yeah,
it's like you're that
yeah.
person, and
Yeah.
it fits so well.
I did when I made this, I wanted to highlight Choi because, you know, she took the year off. She came off at 26 plays, took the year off because of a shoulder. She, I think, tore a ligament. But the thing, what I found out, she didn't get surgery. She just rehabbed it. So I don't know what that decision will mean for her because obviously when you tear a ligament, you're hoping that rehab, you know, it's, you know, her electing not to have surgery. I don't know if that decision is going to work out for her. So it's something to keep an eye out when it comes to Choi. I'm a big fan of her. I think she has a lot of potential. She's still fairly young. I think she's 26, and yeah. So, all right, moving on to the next set of 10. Who do we have here? We have 31 through 40.
Yeah, so again, in this range, there's a blend of athletes who were at the CrossFit Games this year and some that were not. Abigail Domet, Kelly Baker, Sydney Wells, Ella Vunger, Bailey Rail being the 5 that were, Jacqueline Dahlstrom, Carolyn Prevost, Turi Helgadottir, Annika Greer, and Sydney McLishan being the ones that weren't. Dahlstrom, Prevost, Helgadottir, and McLishan have previously been there. Greer is the only one in this range that has not yet qualified for the CrossFit Games. John.
Yeah, I mean the person who sticks out the most to me right now is Sydney Wells. If that's where you have her, where do you? I'm just curious where you have Brooke. I'm assuming you have Brooke. I'm assuming you have Brooke on this list. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me have it. I'm ready. I've been waiting.
Well, I mean, we're not at Brooke yet. You know what I mean? I'll talk when we get to Brooke.
Are you surprised? Are you surprised that Sydney is this low?
No. So like these are this level of women, you're barely making the games.
Or barely missing it.
Or barely missing it. You're barely missing it or making it, right?
Yeah, because everyone on this list is from
appropriate.
Everyone in this 10 is from North America or Europe, and not all of them are going to make the CrossFit Games. Then we're inside the top 40 fittest in the world. So we're, basically the statement that I'm making here is the statement that I've been making, which is the 40 fittest women in the world are not at the CrossFit Games every year. There are women from North America and Europe that will miss the CrossFit Games, but are better than 5 to 10 of the women that will be at the CrossFit Games.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think it's just like this. Maybe the next 10 to 40 through 20. It's very It's very dictated by the programming. Like if a couple events are like just home run hits for any one of these girls, for instance, Monica Greer gets a handstand push-up event, and then a bunch of squatting events, right? Like she's gonna rip it up, right? Vice versa, they all have weakness, like home run hitters come with home run weaknesses, and then
so this is like a good, kind of like I say with the top 5 men in the world. Like if you threw these 10 women into a competition and I didn't tell you the programming, you would have a hard time telling me who was going to win.
Yeah.
because they each excel. They're all very fit, and they all
Mhm.
excel at a variety of different things. But a few nuances or tweaks to bias programming here or there could mean a totally different outcome for a competition. And when that competition is the semifinals, that could be for their season and potentially for their career because of it.
And what you're showing me here is if that scenario did happen, is that you're going to lean towards the more experienced athletes in that particular case, which you've always said.
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly right, Patrick. I'm glad you brought that up, because what I am basically saying here is, even though Dahlstrom, Prevost, Helgadottir didn't make it last year, I would still take their consistency and excellence and proven fitness over time against the one-offers that made it last year. Not to say they won't do it again, but until they do, I like that veteran
I'm
experience.
surprised. This is where I think I feel like Bailey Rail should be higher than this. I know she didn't have her best games performance,
but she had two top 20 before then, right? I believe so.
Right. So like, and she had like a comeback of like a really big comeback to make it right in semifinals.
Yeah, but I think maybe that might be, and Brian, you correct me on, maybe that's the reason why she's so low, is because she actually had, I mean, she's coming off overall, this is her worst game season since being a games athlete. So some might say she's maybe on the downside. I mean,
she's not on the downside, bro. How old is she?
I mean, she's what, 28, maybe 29.
But it doesn't only have to
do her career.
And, I agree. I'm just saying, just based off of what we know, she had two top 20. I mean, her first game, she was the same way, where she was a backfill, not for the games, but to get into the
quarterfinals.
From
quarterfinals to semifinals. Yeah, she was like 127 in North America.
Yeah.
And then made it in. And she is an athlete that seems to do well at the CrossFit Games.
Correct.
That is true. Yeah. Getting there is harder for her than doing relatively well there. Totally fair critique there. So you would put her ahead of everyone else on this list?
I think so. Yeah, I think I would put her. I don't know. Jacqueline Dahlstrom's really good. I think I'd put her 30th.
We'll take a look and see who those are, and certainly.
It's a matter of 4 spots. It's not a lot. It's just I think she's better than the women that you have.
Do you think that it's okay to have Annika in this range?
Yeah, I mean she missed the games by like what, 2 points?
Like
I think Annika Greer
had a good performance in Madrid.
I don't put a lot of stock in Madrid, but you put Annika Greer and Sydney Wells.
Dude, John, you can't just say those things as a one-off. It's like we only get to see these athletes every so often. If she goes to Madrid, we're expecting her to podium, and she does. That's good. That's validating the fact that she is doing what she needs to do.
It's who you can beat for me.
And she beat everyone that she was supposed to beat there, and she didn't beat Karen Frey. So that was like, for me.
That's fine. No, but I'm saying you have to beat people that like are relevant for me to put a lot of stock into it. If you beat a lot of people you're supposed to,
it's better than not beating them.
For your ranking. It does not. Yeah, but if you don't beat them, like for instance,
if she came in,
Brent Fikowski lost to who did he lose to? The Spanish
Benito
guy.
And Moritz Fiebig.
Yeah, and Moritz Fiebig. Is Brent Fikowski worse than those guys?
No, you saw the rankings last week. Absolutely not.
No, he's not. Absolutely not. They're not even close. Well, how did those guys beat him? I don't put a lot of stock into.
I hear what you're saying.
And if Brent Fikowski won, it would mean nothing. It would mean the exact same. Nothing. Now, if Annika Greer was
look,
in Madrid,
wait.
Hold on. No. Let me make this point. You can go. If Annika Greer was in Madrid and she beat freaking Danielle Brandon, then Annika Greer, then that does a lot for me. I'm just throwing out a name. The only person
that was there that she had a chance to beat that was like that was Karen Frey, and she did not.
So and she didn't. But I'm saying if she beat Karen Frey, then that would mean something to me. She would climb lists. It means something to me. The fact that she beat everybody else that's not Karen Frey that she's supposed to beat doesn't do anything for me.
Well,
to me, it validates the fact that she is in a good place.
If she got 5th, she would have been the same spot for me. You disagree?
So do you guys think that she should have beaten Jacqueline and Thury, who were at Madrid?
Say again.
Well, Annika beat Jacqueline and Thury at Madrid.
I mean,
So
those
that was
girls are all.
expected.
I don't think that was expected, but I put them all in the same boat. I put
Sure,
them all in
sure.
the same tier.
So you think that this is a decent, an appropriate spot for her on the list?
Yes, I do. I do.
Yeah.
I'm just saying when you
But
talk
you're,
about Madrid,
yeah, and what I've been saying is like if we don't put value in the off-season competitions, then we're not really doing any favors for this sport to continue to grow. Like it's
I
great when
place
an athlete.
value if people if the better people
It's
do it.
I mean, look, the Fabian Benito and Moritz Fiebig example is a good one. Like, yes, they beat Brent Fikowski at that competition. The reasons we could spend an hour going into that, but they back that up with Fabian Benito making his first CrossFit Games and Moritz Fiebig looking pretty damn good at a European semifinal. So the
Yes.
fact that they're competitive with him there is a good showing. The fact that Annika Greer was competitive at a very difficult North America East semifinal and outperformed some very good European athletes in Madrid, in those things in combination do matter to me and are part of the reason why I have her here on the list.
We're saying the same thing, but it just means different things to us. Like that meant everything for Fabian Benito and Moritz Fiebig. All of a sudden, when I see their name, I place them a little bit higher because I remember when they beat Brent Fikowski. They have the ability to beat Brent Fikowski.
And if they had
even,
finished,
even
and
if
if
the
Brent
programming was
Fikowski,
worse to them.
and if Brent Fikowski had done one more lunge without getting a no rep, they would have been second and third to him, and you wouldn't have valued them the same.
Nope.
That's ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. It literally came down to one lunge step.
It's not ridiculous.
Let's go to 21 through
because
30
that's
and
Fikowski
see.
doing it. Fikowski had to send it. If Fikowski is winning, he doesn't have to send it. He didn't.
You know that the circumstances of a Dubai Fitness Championship last year were a little bit questionable. 31 through 40, you like Jacqueline Dahlstrom and Bailey Rail and would have them higher. Let's take a look at 21 through 30 and see if there are other athletes on that list that you would put them ahead of.
Okay. I will note that I am interested to see what Ella does this year. She has kind of been, I don't know if last year was a fluke or not for her, but just something to think about. All right, moving on to the next 10. What do we got here? We got 21 through 30.
A lot of games athletes on this list. All of them games athletes from this year.
What's your
except for Danny and Ellie.
Except
well,
for
Ellie
Danny.
was at the game this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Danny was the only
All
one.
except for Danny Spiegel made the games this year. Correct.
Correct.
Emma McQuaid, I think, was pretty beat up at the games this year. Had a very underwhelming performance for her. I still think she's fitter than she showed at the games. What's my opinion on Ellie Turner? Is that what you asked me?
Yeah, I just feel like I think she's better than where you have her.
Yeah, same as Bailey Rail. Certainly has had better performances than this.
I mean, I think I'd put her 21st. I think I'd put her above all these women. Her and Olivia are together.
So of these 10, you think that those are the top two?
Yes.
And do you think Bailey Rail and Jacqueline Dahlstrom should unseat any of the women on this list?
I'd put them above Shelby Neal, both of them.
And no one else?
Yeah, nobody else.
Okay, so 4 or 5 spots for both of them there. And Ellie, you would have maybe 8 to 10 spots higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Ellie, obviously it's very well known. Both Ellie and Justin had a very uncharacteristic seasons for themselves last year. Ellie not on the mountain either.
None of these girls are on
the. There's not a lot on the mountain. Only 9 on the mountain.
You got to be like top 10 to be on the mountain.
Yeah, and maybe there can be some foothills in the distance eventually.
Like caves or something. It's like it's either top of the mountain or base camp for John. Those are his 2 levels.
I just watched,
is there like a mid level, like a mid base camp or
I just watched the Hobbit, the last Hobbit movie on the plane last night, and maybe there's some athletes that are just like camping out in the city of Dale for the Lord of the Rings fans out there.
Just over to the side.
Yeah, just waiting to summit or to try to make a push.
It's possible.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair criticism of Ellie Turner. I'm hopeful that she has a bounce back year this year. I have like a kind of a suspicious feeling that those performances from her the previous 2 years were the best that we're ever going to see.
Oh
Certainly could be
wow. You think her back thing is like deteriorating?
not. I'm not sure, but I think the women's field is good and getting better at the top. And I haven't seen the same from her. And I think that in the women's field, if you're sliding backwards, that's not a good thing. But totally open to being wrong on that one. That's just kind of where I see it right now.
I still think she has home run ability though. That just yes, she might have to get like lucky with the events, but if there's an event, there's events that she can hit out of the park, and that does so much for you when you have home run ability, because not a lot of people do, and that's why people love it. No, she's not. I think Danny Spiegel is appropriately ranked. That's a good. I like that.
Yeah, that's
I think
good.
I think I said I was the Sherpa.
The Sherpa.
Anyone else on this one, PC?
No, I think it's. I know both of you guys are pretty high in Ellie, and I don't know.
He's got her at 28.
Yeah, I know. I think that's probably a good spot for her right now. I mean, yes, she was hurt, but if you look at the programming, the rest of the games, how do you think she does better? I mean, unless she's gotten better as a runner, which I know that she works with aerobic capacity, and she handstand walks are still a huge crutch for her.
I think like you got your top 5.
Sure.
And then there's like a tier of like 7 girls. I mean, I know we'll get into this. And then there's like a tier of like 7 girls, like 6 through 12 or 13. And then there's another tier of 7 girls that are like 14 through 21. I think Ellie is on the back half of that tier.
Okay, I agree. Well, I mean, I've gotten a couple texts here since we've been talking about Ellie from a couple, and I'm not going to say their names, but some CrossFit Games coaches, people that have, they think that she's overrated. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So. Anyways,
that would lead to what you guys are saying, and then she's going to be trash and she sucks. All right.
Jesus, John.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I tried to take up for you, Ellie. I really did.
No. Hey. All right.
Okay,
moving on.
Say what you said, Patrick. Say it with your chest. It's okay. Next.
I didn't say anything. I think this is a good. I think this is a good ranking for her. That's what I said. But for you, anything below 20 is trash and crap or irrelevant.
No.
You said it on record.
It doesn't excite me.
It doesn't excite you.
Yeah.
But would you
all
say
these women could walk in the gym and destroy me at everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I know they'll destroy any of us. But the thing is, you've said it on record many a times. I think you've moved the goalpost a couple times. But if this woman or man isn't in this finish, they're irrelevant. Correct?
Yeah. No, I stand by that. You're irrelevant to the top 10 of the games. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then that's what I'm saying. So yeah. So it doesn't matter.
You deserve to be here. It's exciting to see you if you have home run ability. If you don't have home run ability, when am I ever going to talk about you?
In Madrid.
You see what? You see, and that's harsh. That is harsh. That's mean, but like that is the truth. Brian cares about you way more than I do. And that's just who the people I'm going to analyze. I think the picks at the top, like your top 10 picks, I think I'm really good at those for a reason. And if you're not there, I just don't give you as much attention.
I don't know.
I would love that.
Danny
I would love that. Pick a distance.
Pay-per-view events. That's a pay-per-view event.
Yeah. Hey, Fit Wars. That's the next Fit Wars.
Listen. I used to, what's fun is I can actually be confident about this now. You know what I mean? I used to be like, well, Danny probably still beat me.
What do you think about this, John? 1.5 mile run on a track next Fit Wars. Me
and Danny Spiegel?
Yeah.
Absolutely. In a heartbeat.
That'd be epic. Let's go to the next list.
$5 pay-per-view.
I'm getting excited for the top 20 here. This is where we're going to get into some names that kind of span the spectrum. So first, right off the bat, I see at 11th place, Haley Adams. We'll talk about her. Didn't compete last year. Alexis Raptis, 12th. Two top 10 finishes the last 2 years. Katrin Davidsdottir was in the top 10 of the games this year. Paige Powers was 10th last year at the games. Amanda Barnard, who's had several top 10 finishes. Jamie Simmons, who was potentially poised for a top 10 finish before hurting her elbow. Emily Rolfe coming off her best season ever at the games. Bethany Flores, who had a resurgence this year. And this is a pretty impressive group of women to not be in the top 10, John.
Very.
Yeah, I disagree with you about some of these.
So just to make, okay. Well, without seeing who's in the top 10, obviously there's a.
I can make my guesses though.
Well, you probably know, but of the names on this list, which are the ones that you would see them and immediately think they need to be in the top 10?
Your top two.
Adams and Raptis.
Yep.
So the ones that are just barely on the outside.
Yeah.
Are there
no,
any?
And that's not a hardcore disagree. It's just.
No. We're gonna just bookmark those when we see the next 5. Then we'll ask you which ones you would have kind of replaced them with.
Okay.
And on the other end, is there anyone in this grouping that you think is like irresponsibly too high, or that you might have Ellie Turner ranked ahead of?
I'd probably have Ellie Turner where Bethany Flores is, and Bethany would be like 21. I put Ellie Turner in that group of girls. Emily Rolfe, Bethany, Ellie Turner, Olivia. You take those 4, and I think whatever the programming is, they will finish, it depends what the programming is, right? If it's more power output strength, I think Olivia and Ellie can finish ahead of Emily Rolfe and Bethany. If it's more endurance and gymnastics, I think vice versa. Most of the time, it's going to be more endurance gymnastics worth, but like a competition like Rogue, I would put, I think Olivia and Ellie could be more successful than Emily and Bethany. But most of the time, Emily and Bethany will be ahead of those 2. I just put those 4 kind of in their own little clique, even though they're opposite people.
Where are they on the mountain?
No, they're not on the mountain. They're in their base camp.
Wait, no, Olivia's in base camp. Olivia's in base camp.
Olivia is one of the 9 people on the mountain on the women's side.
No. She's in base camp. Brian.
Oh, she's at base camp.
She's getting fitted. She's getting fitted for her boots and her her.
She hasn't decided if she wants to climb the mountain or not. Amanda Barnhart's also at base camp. She fell off the mountain.
Damn.
Yeah, Barnhart's an interesting one. There were some comments suggesting that they think that she'll have a resurgence to the top 10, but amongst our group that we were talking about it, it's not, I'm not entirely sure what her intentions are in terms of
I have no idea.
Competition next year at the highest level. Obviously, an incredible talent, strong, fit woman. But like I mentioned a few minutes ago, the top end of the women's field is very good. I think it's getting better and better. And I saw Brandsitter's comment there that seeing Raptis outside the top 10 makes it want to puke. And this is, it's getting to be where if all of these women compete next year, which there's no guarantee that they all will, that there's just not room for everyone inside the top 10.
And Alexis was 6th or 7th last year.
I think 7th at best.
Yeah,
I think wasn't Emma Carey 6th?
Yeah,
she was 6th. Emma Carey was 8th.
Emma was 8th. Raptis was 6th.
Yeah,
and I think this is
Raptis when healthy as a savage.
There's a lot of questions. This has been a big thing was Alexis's ranking, both online and in chat here. But this is something that I think Justin brings up is when healthy is savage. I agree. I know I agree, but we don't know the extent. We obviously know she made the rounds on the talk shows and podcasts talking about her health. And it does affect her. It affected her at semifinals, she said, and it affected her at the games. So
I think we have to rank her though, assuming that she's healthy.
Correct. But the way she's been talking is that she hasn't been healthy.
All right. Well, now.
Yeah, I know.
The game
manageable.
August.
Yeah. But I also think some of the girls, or some of the women we've ranked, or Brian's ranked ahead of her, he's seen at either Rogue or or in other competitions since the games. So I don't know. And Brian, maybe you can answer this.
Yeah, a little bit, but also there's just okay. I don't know my full setup here, so I can't see everything all at once. But there's there are just a few women that didn't compete last year that I still think if you put them back into the conversation would disrupt those rankings. Basically, meaning knocking everyone down 1, 2, 3, or 4 spots. And in the case of Raptis, there's I think 4 women ahead of her that didn't compete at the games last year. That 6th place turns into a 10th place.
I think we just disagree about the women who are competing. How many people that puts her down? Like I see it 2 spots as at most, and I guess you see it as 5 spots.
4, I think 4.
Yeah, and Justice states right here. I would tell you, as someone who has ulcerative colitis, the fact that she qualified for the games in a minimal flare-up is superhuman. It's mind-boggling. So,
for instance, I think Alexis Raptis is better than Emma Carey. I think she's fitter than Emma Carey. What she looked like at the games and what I've seen from Emma Carey, Emma Carey would have to beat Alexis Raptis for me to place them opposite, or for me to switch that ranking, and she has not in 2 straight games.
Well, yes, it did beat her at semifinals.
I will care, Brian, about semifinals. She had ulcerative colitis flare up, and you're going to use that as a data point that Emma Carey beat her?
She beat everyone at that semifinal. Emma Carey's. I mean, I still don't think that we've seen the top end potential from Emma Carey. I still
think we have from Raptis?
No, I don't.
Then why is Raptis so low? Why do you hate Alexis Raptis?
I love Alexis Raptis. And I love her coach too. I think they're an amazing team, and I think that they have tremendous potential. I'm just saying that the women's field is extremely competitive, and while I think that there's a lot of people that are still kind of trending up, there are some concerns, obviously, and knowingly about Raptis. So we'll keep an eye on Adams and Raptis and see where you would put them inside the top 10 as we move forward here. Anyone else that you think is worth making a comment?
Barnhart's appropriate. I think there's no way to know, and that's exactly that's the place where I would have. I think that you know what I mean.
What about Simmons? I mean, I think she was poised to make about a 10th place finish at the games. She got injured, which could knock her way down the list.
Yeah, I mean, she's kind of like it's way better. Do not get me wrong, but kind of like Sarah for me. You know what I mean? Like I think her best days are just past her. And she's good enough to make it. She's good enough to be top 20, but I don't think she'll ever be top 10.
Well, I mean, I do think she was going to be knocking on the door of that this season, if not for that injury. Young CrossFit season only. Yeah, right. Okay.
That matter. Yeah.
Should we move into the next group?
When predicting the games. Absolutely. All right. Yes. Yep, top 10. Or 10.
All right.
Are we doing this one by one?
I think it's 5.
Yeah, it's the next 5.
Oh, it's actually 6. It's actually 4 through 10.
Yeah.
What did Brooke Wells do to you, Brian?
All right.
Do you know,
there it is.
Was she hurt? Was she hurt during semifinals? Or was she sick? Or what's the reason she didn't make the games? If it's she just had a bad event, then you are on crack for putting her this high.
We'll see. I believe that Brooke Wells is going to get back into form, much similarly to how Katrin Davidsdottir did this last season, and have another top 10 run at the games this year.
You think Brooke Wells is the same mentally strong as Katrin Davidsdottir is? You think she's
Didn't you see the title of her book?
Resilient as Katrin Davidsdottir?
Hey man, you don't make the games 8-9 years in a row and have the kind of finishes that she has without having some kind of mental toughness.
More than Katrin?
What do you mean?
Do you think she has more mental toughness than Katrin?
I don't see how that's relevant in this conversation.
You use Katrin as an example, like Katrin Davidsdottir. I think she'll have.
Well, yeah, because that was an athlete who had a lot of good years in a row, like really, really good years in a row. And then she had one year that didn't go well. And then she bounced back and had another great year. And a lot of people weren't sure if she would have the chance to ever push back into the top 10. And I'm saying that I think that Brooke Wells does have that chance, like Katrin did last year, which I also projected.
I don't see it. I think Brooke Wells is going to be like 20th place.
Okay, besides Wells.
I put her like where the man of Barnhart. I don't think we know.
So middle teens.
But
So
Yeah.
you would have moved Adams and Raptis past Wells. Pull that down, PC. Would you have moved her past anyone else on this 9 and up for Wells and Raptis?
Yeah. I mean, I think they're both. I think I would. I definitely put Raptis. So for me, I think Raptis is like.
You
How do you
might
have
put
Mal
Raptis.
O'Brien that high and Haley Adams that low?
What are you talking about?
They're out for the same reason, right?
Yeah, but Mal O'Brien's just
Haley
a lot
Adams was
better.
5th and Mal O'Brien was 2nd. They're 3 spots.
Okay. And I don't think that Mal ever reached the peak of her potential, and I think Haley did.
And
Oh, and we lost Patrick.
Do you think?
Finish.
I don't disagree with you that I think Haley did.
I got to take a break.
Okay,
Okay.
but whatever that was.
He probably has to use the bathroom. I don't know.
They like come up on him all quick. I don't think. I think. You think Mal O'Brien's going to come in back and be the exact same Mal O'Brien?
Why don't you notice I don't have her ranked second?
Well, Tia
I think that in the case of Haley Adams and Mal O'Brien,
wasn't there, so she would have been 3rd.
I think in the case of both Mallory O'Brien and Haley Adams, that if they come back and compete next season, that they will be about as good as they were in the year that they left, but that the field has gotten a little bit better. And I think that in the case of Mal O'Brien, she was so close to the top that the only person that's passed her by is
I'm
Emma
back.
Lawson. But in the case of Haley Adams, that the women that were just right behind her there was like a group of 5 to 7 of them that are all going to be difficult for her to beat again in this year, if she comes back this year.
I think it's harder for Mal O'Brien to get back to what she was than what it is for Haley.
That's all. I mean, that is also an understandable conversation because those 3 spots are. It's only 3 spots. I'm sorry about. It's only 3 spots, but it is different. Like every spot you go up.
What I'm saying, Vi. I'm saying this. I'm disagreeing with Brian.
This is and these are me. Again, they might not be on the list. Mal may not be on the list by the time the Open comes around. She may not choose to compete. I'm saying if she chooses to compete, then I'm assuming that she's doing it from a place where she can put in training and she has the mental fortitude to withstand a season and a competition, or the competitive season, and that I still think that she's one of the top 4 fittest women on earth.
All right, I think okay. We agree on the top 3. I already know we're going to agree. I agree. Tia is at the top. She should be. If she's not,
it's Tia, Laura, and Emma. Yes.
Yeah. I agree 100% of that top 3. And then 4. Like I'm just going to read you what I would have. 4 is Alex Gazan for me. 5 is Mal O'Brien. 6 is Gabby.
So same 3, just a different order.
Sure. Okay. 6 is Gabby. 7, I'd put Alexis Raptis. 8, I'd put Emma Carey. 9, I'd put Danielle Brandon. And then 10, I'd put Haley Adams. 11, I'd put Ariel Lowen.
You're bumping Lowen from 3rd all the way down to 11th.
Yep.
You're giving me a hard time about bumping Raptis down 6 spots. You're bumping Lowen down 8th. Right? Yeah, so why can't it be Raptis that we know that there's something wrong with instead of Ariel Lowen that we've only seen a positive upward trajectory from?
You think that trajectory is going to continue upward?
Clearly not, but I put her at 8th.
Okay, it's only 3 spots before you're like it's only 3 spots different.
When you want 3 spots to be a small thing, it's a small thing. When you want it to be a big thing, it's a big thing.
Well, no, because you used that argument, and I said okay. Now moving on. But I think Ariel Lowen had the year of her life. Okay, and you've used that expression before. I don't think she's ever going to get 3rd place again. I think that was the best year she's ever going to have. I'm not saying she's going to get worse, but the 2 girls that were better than her, Haley Adams and Mal O'Brien, are returning, just like you have said. So that bumps her down 2 spots.
But we don't know that they're returning.
Well,
just
assuming
including them as if they were correct.
Okay, assuming they do. Ariel Lowen traditionally has finished around 9 through 11, right?
Do you think it'd be a regression to the mean
Yes,
for
that's
her,
what I'm
for the
saying.
norm? That she hasn't actually gotten better. She just had a perfect storm of events this year with
100%.
some athletes not being there, great execution on workouts that were designed for her.
Yep. And I think Haley Adams is better than everybody thinks she is. She's the 5th fittest woman in the world, and I think that version will come back. I think Mal O'Brien is still freaking Mal O'Brien.
But you
She'll
ranked
be a little less.
you ranked Haley 10th and Mal 5th.
Yeah. Mal O'Brien's better than Haley Adams. Is that what we're arguing?
No, you called her the 5th fittest woman on earth.
No,
but
no,
you're
no.
ranking her
Like
10th.
when she left. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically we are both projecting a slight regression against the field for Mal and Haley should they return. Our main areas of contention would be you think that I have Brooke Wells too high and Alexis Raptis too low. Everything else is more or less equivalent.
Yeah, I think Alexis Raptis is better than Emma Carey, and you think Emma Carey is better than Alexis Raptis. Errol Lowen, we both think is going to regress. Brooke Wells, you got a hard on for, and I don't know why. And
We have to pull up her stats, John.
Other than that, we'll see what happens.
We will see what happens, but like 9 out of 10 times she does better than this.
Why did she not make the games last year?
You read the comments that Patrick was pulling up. I'm not entirely sure, but there have been elite athletes that sometimes have a trip up and miss the games. It's like that'd be like saying, "Oh, Jonakoski missed the games in 2018. Why did he do that? He's all of a sudden no longer relevant. He's going to be 20th."
Brooke Wells ain't Jonakoski.
Her record at the games is better than his.
She's not him.
She's better than him.
I'm saying more women have come into the game. More men have not come into the game with Jonakoski. The same men have left. Men have left and men have came in. There are more that's crowded more at the top now. Obviously, you have Tia and Laura. I'm saying the tier right after them, there is like 4 women where there wasn't 4 women before. Brooke was one of the 4 women. She's not anymore.
According to you, and according to me, she is, and we'll see. There's the jury is out to see, so we'll see. I think that Brooke Wells has
Sydney
potential to make
Wells.
the top 10.
Here, what's the average here? I'm not gonna say what you thought I was gonna say. I promise. Sydney Wells was 37th.
I believe so. Yes.
And Brooke Wells is 10th. What's the middle of that?
27 divided by 2, 13 and a half, 23.5.
Okay, I bet Sydney finishes closer to that than, or like spaces wise. You know, how am I trying to word this? This is the middle of those two.
The gap?
Yeah.
We're gonna let you figure it out because I'm not entirely sure what you're trying to say.
I don't know either.
Like Sydney's going to be better to that number than Brooke is the opposite way.
So you're saying the average placing is going to be better for Sydney than Brooke?
No, Brooke. I think Brooke.
You think that Sydney will be? You think that Sydney will be close to 23?
I think she'll be closer to 23 than Brooke will be to 10th. The opposite.
Gotcha.
That's
Okay.
what I'm saying. There we go.
So you think so basically you think I've underrated Sydney and I've overrated Brooke.
Yes.
And that they're actually the trajectories of their career are getting closer together.
Yes.
Sydney's a young athlete in the sport.
Yeah.
Exactly the same age as Brooke.
Yeah, not near as much CrossFit years.
Right. And sometimes the CrossFit years are extremely valuable. And it's that training age and that competitive advantage and experience that plays a lot more of a factor than anything else. And we've seen women with 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years of competitive CrossFit continue to replicate performances from when they were 23, 4, 5 years old. And I don't see any reason that a healthy Brooke Wells
best year.
I think her best year was the year she broke her elbow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But we've seen I agree. But
and I still think that she could get back to that level of fitness. However, the field is better. Therefore, where that year might have yielded a 4th or 5th or a 6th, I think it's more likely to yield a 9th, 10th, 11th.
No, but I'm saying, okay, I get why you have her 10th. I get that. But would you agree that Brooke's best year is behind her?
In terms of placement, probably. In terms of fitness, not necessarily.
You think she can get fitter than she was? Or just get to the same level?
I think she can get to this. If she gets to the same level, which I do think that she can, I don't think it will yield the same result against the full field that we are projecting here.
And do you think Sydney's best year is ahead of her?
Yes, but just because I have her
All that will lead to
37th,
what I'm saying.
just because I have her 37th on this list doesn't mean that I think she's going to finish 37th if she makes the CrossFit Games again.
Right.
There,
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
you understand that. All right. Well, I think that was a pretty good conversation. A few disagreements. We have generally the same women near the top. I mean, it would be great, I think, if all of these women compete this year. Obviously, we want them to compete in healthy and safe environments. But it's we should definitely acknowledge the top three. Do you think that at this point, Lawson has kind of separated herself from everyone else that we just talked about?
Mal O'Brien's impossible to know, but I do.
Yeah, I think
if we can agree on that, then I do. I think Emma Lawson's going to win the 2025 CrossFit Games.
2 years out from potentially seeing a games champion. Yeah, in 2018, I thought George Sterner was going to be the guy to win the first CrossFit Games after Matt Fraser. Never happened. Laura Horvath, the defending games champion, 2-time defending Rogue champion. I think that it's, look, I think Laura is still getting better. I think that we were seeing the fittest version of her that we've ever seen. I think she's in a really good place in her life. And it's one of these conversations that we had when it comes to Pat Vellner as well. It's like he just happens to be in the prime of his career during the time that Fraser exists. And for Laura, that's the equivalent with Tia Claire Toomey. What we saw from Tia at Rogue was nothing short of incredible, mind-blowing, really, really difficult to comprehend how anyone could come back from a pregnancy and put a performance like that. It wasn't good enough to beat Laura that weekend, but I think that it'll be more than enough to beat her in the entire field come next August.
Do you think she'll beat everybody by over 100 points or under 100 points?
Depends. That depends on probably the scoring system and the cuts, and how the points are distributed. Also, the totality of the depth of field. If all of these women compete there, then they'll be stealing points from each other more regularly. I would take the under for now, just because I think Laura is that good that even with one event that she takes the last place on, that she can stay within 100 points of Tia. But I don't want to put it past Tia either.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a good bet this far out from the games. Like if there was a place that we could make those bets.
Under bet. Yeah, 100%. I wanna clarify real quick. I think Brooke will finish like 15th.
Which is what you said about where Amanda Barnhart was on the rankings. I had her at 16th there.
Or is that where you had Hopper?
Hopper right in that range, yeah, about 15th. And Brooke has had finishes like that at the games before.
That's what she is. It's kind of like what we think about Hopper.
Unpredictable. But she's never had a season as bad as his, and she has had multiple seasons better than his.
Well, she didn't make the games last year. I would say that's a worse season.
At the games, yes.
Hey, guys, I have a question here, and I would like to hear your opinion on this. 2 years ago, when Emma Lawson announced that, kind of threw her hat into the individual elite division, a lot of people were like, a lot of people were saying that, she shouldn't, she's not ready, she should stick, do another year of teen. Here we are 2 years later, and we have her ranked in a top 3 behind probably arguably the two greatest women in CrossFit. It's crazy, and I don't think it's recognized how and I think my question is, are we going to end up losing, kind of like how you talked with Laura regarding Tia competing in the same era? Are we going to have that with Emma? Are we never going to see? I mean, yes, Emma is young, significantly younger than Laura, but Laura's only 25, 26 years old. So Laura's going to compete for, who knows, maybe another four years. So what's what's Emma's legacy going to be like?
No, I think you want to go first, Brian.
You go, because you're projecting her to make enough improvements in the next 2 years to win the CrossFit Games.
I think any year that we don't have a strict handstand push-up variant, Laura Horvath will win. And then any year
these are years that Tia is not there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then and for the foreseeable future, obviously, I mean, Alex Gazan might improve enough where like she's up in the race too,
Or
but
Alexis Raptis.
or Alexis or Emma Carey,
Or,
whoever.
oh,
But as of right now, because those girls, I would argue, are still a tier under. Any year that there is a strict handstand push-up variant, I think Emma Lawson will win. And what will probably happen is we'll probably have a year of each, and then somebody new will come along, or one of those girls will improve enough to make it more of a race.
or who knows? Maybe Mal O'Brien will conquer whatever's going on in her personal life and come back and beat them both.
Yeah, for sure.
And Alex Gazan's only 22 years old. Gabby McGowan's 25.
Which, yeah, and John mentioned the fact that Alex Gazan has, and I would agree with this, that Alex Gazan has the skill set as a young athlete of an athlete who can certainly podium and potentially win the CrossFit Games one year.
Did you see her 265 clean?
Actually, I don't think I have. When was that from?
Dude, and it like 2 days ago. And it
the list of female athletes who have a 265 clean is in CrossFit is not very big.
Few. Yeah,
and a couple of them are on this image though.
Made it look like Laura Horvath clean 265. Now it cuts off on there, so I got a feeling she made the jerk not look like what Laura Horvath did. But it looked like 265 is a lot.
And just to kind of, I pulled up, I don't have, like I said, I don't have my full setup here, but I pulled up the leaderboard from the games from last year to just contextualize what John is talking about when it comes to Emma Lawson and Laura Horvath. Mm-hmm. So this past year at the games, Laura had 966 points, Emma had 919, it's a 47-point difference. And Laura's worst place finish was on inverted medley, which was a 27th. Traditionally, when there's a workout where she's finishing 35th or worst, that has some kind of a strict deficit handstand push-up variant. That's, I think that,
it's about 30 points.
20 to 30 points, depending on how poorly she does on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes the gap very, very small.
And I think Emma Lawson will only improve.
Well, the thing is, when you look at Emma Lawson's performances this past year, she had a first place finish on 2 workouts. The rest of her finishes were between 4th and 15th. So it's a pretty tight window. To me, that means that this was a very, very good year for her. Can we assume every year that she's not going to have a finish outside the top 15?
Dude, she was 6th the year previous, though, man. Like I was.
No, I know.
That she was going to be.
But I'm saying that even games champions have finishes outside the top 15 in years that they win the games. So while I'm not saying that what you're saying is incorrect, I'm also acknowledging the fact that Emma had a really, really good games year this year, and that if she's going to do that, she might not be able to bank on a 15th and a better finish on every event at every year of the CrossFit Games. And if she's going to have one of those outside of the top 15, then in addition to those event wins, she still needs to be able to improve some of those 4th, 5th, 6th to 2nd, 3rd, 4ths to help to close that gap.
One at max deadlift, she won't do too hot.
Right, and and it could happen. We
don't see that because she's
but I will say this in this conversation we were having with the guys the other day. Andrew Hiller threw it out there of, hey, I'd love to see a powerlifting total. Like, why couldn't we see a powerlifting total? We've seen the Olympic lifting total. We've seen the other total. Like, those are all lifts that people are training
for the year that I make it.
Leg press, max leg press.
But I thought it was a great idea from Hiller, and it certainly is possible. And that is the point: is that there are also things that can pop up that could potentially detract from the great consistency that Lawson showed this year. Overall, I don't know. I think pretty good. I did read most of the feedback, if not all of it, from you guys last year. I know some of you really, really liked this, going this deep into the list. I do think that there are some kind of trade-offs with it, even though I'm trying to have as big of a pulse as I can on those. And I saw some people even saying, I kind of like the smaller lists better. Maybe give me a top 50, 60, 100, something like that. So I don't know if I probably won't ever expand this beyond the top 200. But I also do feel like getting into that lower quartile of this, that I don't know the athletes as well as I would like to. So I might kind of regress back towards the top, maybe 100 or 150 in future iterations. I'll kind of mess around with that. I did have a comment come in while we were on the show about Lindsay Lane, who was the winner of the Crash Crucible. I didn't have on this list. That is a error on my part. I think she should be on this list, and I'll make a note of that and evaluate her performances for the next one for sure. If there's someone else that you guys think that I left off that should clearly be on, or that might be competing that we didn't know about, like we talked about with Katie and Justine, send us a message, let us know. We're not intentionally trying to omit anyone. We're actually trying to do the opposite. We're trying to have a comprehensive view of the variety of different levels and tiers of CrossFit athletes that are competing and could potentially be competing in relevant competitions within the season or the off season next year. I just want to thank John for taking time on the holiday week and for giving us his insights and opinions, being vulnerable when he doesn't really know as much about some of the athletes, and then being, comfortable to challenge me on the points that he feels strongly about towards the top, especially. I think it's really healthy debate and good conversation, and it's good for the sport in general. And as far as athletes go, I think we're all on the same page here, that we hope that it's motivating for them one way or the other, either that we believe in them and that they can reach, new heights, or that, if they're not happy with it, that they don't hold it against us. It's a really difficult sport to compete in. And, year to year, there are athletes who have big fluctuations. Sometimes it doesn't yield the maybe reward that you think that it should relative to how we assess the performance. And other times we might overdo it. And yeah, John does look incredibly good today. He said if you missed it at the start of the show, he got dressed up for the ladies, and Mel appreciates it, John.
Thank you, Mel. Just for you.
John, last thoughts? Patrick, last thoughts?
Go ahead, John.
Thank you guys for having me. I don't know if my wife is watching, but my wife recently had a surgery. She's in the hospital. She's probably gonna be there for a couple of days. So any prayers would be appreciated. I actually think I'm going to podcast from the hospital later today for Spin's show, because that's where I'll be. So any prayers for that? She should be good. She's past surgery, all that stuff, but her stomach got all twisted up, and they had to rearrange things. So we've been in a whirlwind the last couple of days. But other than that, thank you for having me on. Appreciate it. And yeah.
PC,
yeah,
wrap it up for us.
Yeah, those who don't follow John at John Young CrossFit, also follow John on his John Young Barbell or JY Barbell?
JY Barbell.
Yeah.
Hey, we should give a shout out to Travis Bro of JY Barbell at Top 10 Performance, the Charlotte Classic. Looked really good.
I know. Yeah. He's our number one athlete currently.
Yep.
Not including myself. I guess I got.
Of course, you can't. Don't include yourself. Never include yourself.
Yeah.
So
we poached him from Taylor. Don't tell Taylor.
Just a serious question, actually. Could those two programming work in tandem with each other?
Who?
What you're programming through JY Barbell and what Taylor offers.
If he'll have me, if he wants me to be like the strength.
No, I'm saying could I follow the JY Barbell potentially for the strength implements of my training, and also maybe lean on Taylor for some of the Metcon accessory capacity work?
Absolutely. I think if you want a general programming or like just fitness in general, Taylor's great. Taylor self-made programming. Is that, I have it right? Self-made.
Oh yeah.
Programming. And then I would argue that listen, I specialize in strength stuff. If you want to get stronger, it doesn't matter what you want to get stronger at. I can help you with anything you want as far as that goes.
He has done it. He's done it with himself. He's done it with a variety of other people that I know. He's offered to do it with me. I just honestly don't have the consistent training right now to do it.
Yeah, like you're in a different continent every week, so it's kind of difficult.
If there comes a period of time where I'm in the same spot for long enough, I might consider going through a cycle. We've talked about it before, but check it out. As Patrick said. All right, Patrick, continue.
Yeah, John, thanks again. Thanks for joining us. For all our listeners and people listening live, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for spending your afternoon with us. And I think I'm going to let Odd kind of close us off here, unless you want to do it, Brian.
Show me. All right, Audrey, be friendly, our friends.